All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another awesome episode of Lab Rats Culture. I'm incredibly excited, honored, humbled to have our next guest. I have known this fellow for well over 10 years now. Our next guest I met on the dance floor for the first time. The event name was Crackin' Beats. The city was San Diego, California. His name is Lando Wilkins, who I would later know as the founder of the Box Cutters Crew, the Nail Cutters Crew, one of the superpowers that was used to create the Most Wanted Crew, who made their mark on MTV on MTV's ABDC. And seriously, I mean that was like a super crew put together and established. But then, aside from that, he's traveled all over the world, teaching class, battling, judging battles, setting up businesses and agencies and a whole bunch of other stuff that we're going to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Lando Wilkins to the lab. Thank you very much, bro.
Pleasure, bro. Thank you, man.
Absolutely, man. Now, so jumping off into this, look, I know you. So for our viewers, for the people listening, could you please tell us where you're from and just paint a picture of your childhood for us?
Oh, I could paint. 'Cause I'm a painter.
Good.
Yeah, I guess I say I'm from San Diego. It's
Mhm.
kind of difficult because father's military and we moved around, but
Mm-hmm.
lived most of my life in San Diego and then LA. So I guess San Diego.
San Diego.
Childhood, pretty colorful. Like parents supported everything I did more so because I proved that I excelled in whatever I did. So I didn't show, even if I failed in something, I wouldn't give up.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of stretched into my adulthood, even though, most parents don't really stand behind the arts a lot,
Right.
especially from the first gen.
Right.
I didn't have the issue with them. They're more loving and caring and big on sarcasm and comedy and stuff like that. And that's, me, it comes throughout my character
Absolutely.
like that too, but also in reality. So I kind of stick towards the morality of things in life, even if they're funny, or if it's dark humor and funny, it's still I find pleasure in things, and that kind of just affected my childhood as well. I just find pleasure in bad and good,
Right.
and that has not changed in my personality since then, which is one of the traits I like to stick to without even trying. So
Dope. Okay, now expand on that for a second. When did you said that the support from your parents as far as you venturing into the arts, that wasn't really a challenge. So when was the first time that you kind of found the arts, even if it wasn't dance or if it was dance? When did you kind of stumble upon like things other than book studies?
oh,
Right.
that's easier because in our generation we had the streets,
Right.
quote unquote, and during this time everything was about creativity and originality because a lot of people, everyone has their poor story or not. Like, I'm not gonna get into all that, but you grow up without some things, you find ways to create from the little that you have. And, some schools provided this with, low education scores, whatnot. And we'd have after school programs or friends get together more, after work is done or schoolwork is done, we get in garages and dance
Right.
or graffiti
Right.
paint and all
Right.
that other stuff, like the whole elements of the hip hop thing during that time. So it was available to me and us growing up in the streets again,
Right.
where we were allowed to be more creative because we didn't have everything,
And
which what I feel is
100%.
lacking now.
100%. Now take us through that. So take us through the process of you actually finding the culture of hip hop and also dance.
Okay, cool.
Like what brought you in? Who were the people that taught you?
Man, so on that instance, I had no choice because it was in our environment.
Okay.
So coming into this, my uncle was a popper. As far as on the dance aspect, I had friends who did the graffiti thing and rapping and music. So in that culture at the time was in my environment. So I didn't even know I was experiencing hip hop because I was already living in it.
Got it. Yeah.
And until later on, where it was defined, and it comes from here and there and all that
Right.
history stuff that I got into later. But it's not that I was forced into it. I was just
You were just already immersed in
cultured,
it through the music, through the dance. So the dance
and
was
just
already
lived
around
it.
you.
Yeah, it was already there. Even before I started dancing, it was sports first. But in the corner, you see all these dudes like hurting themselves,
Right.
spitting on their head and like that. They look crazy,
Right.
But
But it
tools that
was dope,
music
though,
is.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
eventually.
So what was the hook in for you? Did you find that you had a natural skill for dance, or was it during sports you just kind of got tired of it and you wanted to do something else? Was there a certain performance that got you attention that maybe sports hadn't got you? What brought you in and said, "Hey, I can actually do this dance thing, and I'm pretty good at it."
I think what hooked me, if I had to choose one thing, would be the freedom of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
It was just freedom. I can do whatever I want,
Mm-hmm.
and whether it was accepted or not, it's on me for people to accept what it is that I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
which led into the whole creativity thing of just creating. And
Right.
it was a mental thing for me, and I've always been kind of like a mathematician in thinking.
Right.
And there's always angles, and
Yep.
even in musicality, the way you break
Yep.
down music and see it visually.
Mm-hmm. Which also I think is really interesting with you too, because it's for those that know Lando, the dichotomy here is that what drew him in was the freedom of creativity, right? But from where I see you stand now and the platforms that you've built right now, you have such a view on education now. Do you know what I mean about where your foundation lies? So which is kind of which to me, when you're first attracted to dance, right, you kind of just do whatever, right? And taking it back to maybe our first battle, right?
Mhm.
I was very aware of the hip hop culture, but I didn't have a lot of the education that I do right now. So like I would be in the middle of waving, and then I do like a couple of pirouettes and a toe touch, and like, you know what I mean. So it was just like
I can explain that
yeah,
though later
exactly. So
though.
it's really interesting that that is the initial draw, is the ability to just freely kind of express yourself however that entails, right? But then after a while, I think you really started to develop a formula of your own style and your own unique expression. And I think I would love to kind of start to get into the process of how that happened, because
Okay.
also geographically, the the San Diego dance community itself, it just produces these creators and shapers of our culture, I think. Do you know what I mean? I mean, because listen, if we go into San Diego, I got you. I mean, the whole Choreo Cookies campus down there, Keone and Mari. But Mari, I remember Mari from being up north
Mhm.
actually before,
A lot of
right?
folks cultivated
Um,
from the north to
yeah,
south.
absolutely. Vin, of course, Culture Shock San Diego. So, can you speak to what
Jabberwockers.
the unique approach that San Diego has to the hip hop culture as far as dance goes?
Um, it's just I feel like every city has their own character and feel,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel in San Diego it's really, really easygoing and accepting of
Mm-hmm.
welcoming people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's more about the enjoyment. I know everyone has fun when they dance,
Mm-hmm.
but there's actually an enjoyment in the environment of accepting all these other cultures coming in
Mm-hmm.
and actually developing on top of those. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, where they do compare and they despair at the same time, or they accept these people or styles and then
Mm-hmm.
they kind of abuse it to a point and then it
Right.
becomes recreated and then innovated and then thrown back out.
Right.
I think
Right.
that's what happened in our generation, so to speak. But I don't know, it's just more about the push, and there's a lot of schools that like the colleges and
Mm-hmm.
that really produce these knowledgeable people, who go into other trades, but they
Mm-hmm.
also have the love for arts, and that they
Mm-hmm.
also bring that mentality into the dance as well, and that kind of just
Mm-hmm.
feeds off. So you get a lot of these creators and people who become choreographers for a moment in time, or they continue, like myself,
Mm-hmm.
that have this certain type of knowledge and mentality that's more based on education versus the
Absolutely.
creativity of
Got
just
you.
wanting to dance
Right.
for fun.
So who taught you your first dance class? Do you remember your first choreography class? Because
Okay, cool.
I'm saying, if you caught on to the freestyle and you're like, okay, but when you decided to go and take class, learn 8 counts, who was your first teacher, and what did that do for your mind then?
It's gonna be a good and bad thing.
Uh-oh.
My first class was at community college, and it was supposed to be Angie Bunch.
Okay.
of Culture Shock.
All right.
But
Shout
we
out
had a
Angie Bunch.
sub that day, and it was Anna Sorrell. That was the first time I
Nice.
met
Okay.
her. Yeah, she was the
Shout
first.
out, Anna. Let's go.
Who, of course, Body Rock and all that stuff.
All right.
But she was my first choreographed class, and I think that was the first time though I felt that I did not like choreography. Of course, when you come from a freestyle background
Yeah,
or
yeah,
just
yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
there's rules and formats that you have to
Right,
follow, and it's just repetition that I didn't understand, I didn't grasp, or I didn't want to grasp, like many do, of what choreography is.
right.
And eventually, I think like the next semester I came back because it was becoming
Mm-hmm.
more of a thing. More crews were
Mm-hmm.
turning to teams now,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole collegiate scene started developing during that time on the West Coast. So it was like, oh, okay, I gave it another shot, and then it just grew from there. And then again, me as a mentalist, and I like thinking things of like a Rubik's cube. I wanted to get everything on the same color, and
Right, right.
started dwelling into other types of crafts. And
Okay.
choreography is a craft as well.
Hmm. Now, through that exploration, what other teachers? Who are some of the other teachers that you found through that exploration? Because if they're so,
Ah, okay.
obviously, you went back because there was a genuine interest there,
Mm.
and you'd probably seen maybe some choreography pieces where you're like, that's actually kind of cool. Maybe we could learn something like that. So through your exploration of finding different classes to take, what teachers did you find that started this shift of the Lando that we know now?
Oh, that happened later.
Ah,
But I mean, classes, man, I forgot names, but a lot of them again was based off of culture shocks. We had
okay,
Sherman,
got it. Of
Julie,
course.
Jafar, KJ,
All right,
Tess. Even
right.
I would take things that was unknown to me just to see the perspective in their minds,
Mm-hmm.
because I pull more from the mentality of a person than I do physicality. Because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like in time we can develop our bodies in any way, but it's hard to get into the mindset of somebody.
Right.
And I think that's what drew me more and still draws me more into people and
Mm-hmm.
performances, or anybody is just who they are as a character, and character basis who I am and what I still
Mm-hmm.
go by.
Mm-hmm. Now, are there any of those teachers that you still keep in touch with to this day? The ones that actually took the time to share their philosophy and mindset with you rather than just dance steps? Are there still do you still keep in contact with any of those today?
I believe at times would be Jafar, even though he kind of moved back to he didn't kind of he moved back to Vegas
Right.
to pursue more things there, but no, not really.
Right.
We've all taken, in respects, they,
Yeah.
either continue with their lives or
Of
families or have
course.
kids now or,
Of course.
developed events, but every now and then it's the same memory, same feeling. Like, if I see you after 5 years, the same imprint that I have of them. So it's still accepting and there's no change. But as far as communication too much, nah, I keep to myself. There's less damage that
It's
way.
yeah, it's a surprise that you're seeing Lando right now, you guys.
I
This
don't
is
get
yeah,
out.
this
I do work. People who work, you don't hear from them.
That's very true. That's very true. But hey, listen, let's jump into that for a second. So let's fast forward, okay?
All right.
So we've gotten a little bit of the base of how you started to come along the art form of dance. And now what I want to talk about is the beginning of you becoming a choreographer, of putting the steps together. When did the respect for the process of putting together choreography start for you? And if
Okay,
there was
cool.
a person that helped that happen, who is that person?
This was right after I left Culture Shock. Um, I was starting to develop a style naturally that intertwined the freestyle mentality into choreography, and at that
Right.
time, it wasn't really accepted, even
Mm-hmm.
when I joined 220 at the time.
Right.
And during this time, a lot of the um, Jabberwockies in our time now, there
Right.
were, I can't think right now, who were they before? Mind Tricks. There
Yeah.
we go, Mind Tricks.
Yeah. Jedi mind tricks. Yeah.
Was cultivating a
Yeah.
lot to San Diego, and I found similarities with Kevin Brewer, who's one of the
Right.
Jabberwockies still. And the way he put musicality, focused more on musicality than the movement
Mm-hmm.
to choreography is where I found relation. Now that he didn't teach me specific movements,
Mm-hmm.
but to see that there was someone similar in my mindset allowed me to accept more what I was doing, that it's okay for me to do this,
Right.
which eventually burst into what everyone's doing now. It's just like
Right.
they let loose and then they just kind of memorize what they did,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Or you have those who place things still. It's still both worlds. But during my time as unofficially being around them and performing with them at times,
Right.
I was able to pull from him and Joe and Phil and Fee and
Mm-hmm.
Rainin,
Mm-hmm.
just how they mixed the underground styles with
Mm-hmm.
choreography and how much more entertaining it can be when you add a mindset to it.
Right.
And
Right.
you already know about them. We all know about that stuff.
Of
And
course.
that's what except for what the difference with me, sorry, is that I use this mentality in different mindsets depending on who's producing,
Mm-hmm.
who's the artist, how the music reads,
Mm-hmm.
and what train of thought I want to be in instead of relying on one idea.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives me more options to develop the craft within that
Mm-hmm.
with my mindset on top of that. So I have more ways to reach out and dabble into
Mm-hmm.
than being restricted to one idea.
Absolutely. The whole landscape is different at this point in time, right?
Yeah.
So the teachings that you got back then, um, how many of those teachings still apply now, and and which one needs to be which one would you say needs to be introduced again into the culture? And the reason I ask that is this, okay? Because you kind of touched on it, right? Is that with the way that the styles evolve, especially within musicality and like these calculated approaches to hitting every single sound within musicality, right? I think there was a lot of there's a lot of focus on that right now, and a lot of the other whole parts of dance, all encompassing. Do you know what I mean? Not just every single sound that you hear,
Hmm.
but dance. Um,
Hmm.
there's a lot of that that's being left out, and I can't tell if it's the mentality of me getting older, just being like, oh,
Nah, it ain't
back
you,
in
bro.
my day, like we didn't,
It's not
da,
you.
da, da. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's not you.
So that's what I'm asking is you know, the things that you learned back then, what is a principle that you would like to give back to the game right now that you feel is lacking?
Man, okay, you just hit me left and right, just
Bow,
Mayweather on me,
bow.
bro.
You know what I'm saying? In depth.
Let me go back to okay, the difference of then and now. Then even we weren't taught properly, and that goes
Right.
to another subject if we have time for that. But from what we learned then into now, we were given a format. I'm sorry, a platform,
Mm-hmm.
and we developed the format out of that, which is still current to today,
Mm-hmm.
especially how to choreograph to counts and within counts and
Right.
all this stuff. We laid out this format for the generation.
Right.
Yet, and you probably agree to this, we have foundation,
Yeah.
and the foundation is and I don't mean like just old moves. It's just
Mm-hmm.
the basis of who you are is what I kind of focus on foundation.
Yeah.
And our current generation is trying to do too much because they don't know who they are. And it's not
Mm.
because of the foundation of knowing a Fresno, whatnot.
Right.
It's also this of the movement of it, how it is that we're able to do what we do is that we put time into creating ourselves into who we are now from those foundation movements,
Mm-hmm.
and then we just layer and add things on that to make it look new and innovate.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as personality wise, they're just copying now because they want that quick fame or notability or credibility for something that they say that is new and is not, like the Running Man, like
It's not the true. It's not the true Running Man.
yeah, it's
Right.
not the
Right.
true Running Man. It's just
Right.
things
Right.
like this, like that's just it's dumb. It's really dumb when, and it's not that it's their fault. Maybe it is. They
Right.
ignore it. But it's also the fault of the generations before because they tend to be quiet until now. And now that they do want to speak up, it's kind of too late
It's too late.
because
Got
the
it.
media and social media is much more stronger than word of mouth.
Right.
And even that happens with us. Like
Mhm.
we get to do things and maybe we created something, but if nothing is said, then that gets overrun
Very
by
true.
what's
Very true.
seen or
Yeah.
viral by
You're
the
right.
millions. And right now, everyone's trying to do the quickest thing. They want to hit as many beats as possible,
Absolutely.
and it becomes oversaturated where you lose the texture or the personality or effect of musicality or
Mhm.
even the ambience of stuff.
Right.
Um,
And it just and also just, I mean, this is just me speaking personally, and there's no shade on anyone, but to a degree, sometimes it takes the feeling out of it for me. You know what I mean? There's nothing like of course we watch dance, but it's a different situation when we feel dance, right? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And I think that feeling comes from things that are only real, not necessarily replicated. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff that is replicated right now, and very few things that are actually real. But those things, they are standing up, and they are making noise. They just happen to be few and far between.
No, I
You
agree, and
know?
that's the thing with there's no connection to anything anymore. It's just developing movement. Everything's visual,
Mm-hmm.
and I had this conversation before where like we're so used to looking for something new that we overlook
Yes.
personality and character and feeling. And we're losing touch. We're becoming more technical than we are spiritual in a
Yeah.
sense. Not
Absolutely.
religion, but everything's technology now, and with that, it's all visual. And I had this
Mm-hmm.
subject before where I find more pleasure seeing someone doing garbage choreography movement
Right.
we consider garbage
Right.
or repetitive, whatever. But
Right.
the way that they feel it and they get in tune into their own world is much more appealing to me now versus watching a crew of 100 people killing a beat.
Right.
It's just boring
Right.
now. There's
Absolutely.
nothing, and that's the
Absolutely.
thing we brought up earlier, where it's like there's no next level yet. And with that, the current generation, I call it Generation 6, is now going back to stage one, where now we're
Mm.
seeing a lot of OGs being reintroduced.
Mm.
All the
Mm-hmm.
teachers that they had who didn't give credit or even mention these names
Right.
are now having a chance to get at these new
Right. Right. Okay.
creators and originators of movement, and they're learning their foundation again, meaning building themselves
Mm-hmm.
over again.
Mm-hmm.
They're feeling this current generation's feeling something's missing,
Right.
and you see a lot more of these foundation styles classes popping up more and
Of
more.
course. Now, do you think that that's happening more in the states, or is that a worldwide epidemic?
To an extent, it's worldwide, but more so in the states.
More so in the
Yeah,
states.
because again, overseas, it's they don't have us. They don't have the luxury of having us all the time as far
Right.
as choreography. And they have to develop themselves and save up money for a year just to go to one event.
Mm-hmm.
It's a commodity to people who are here now because they have us 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
So the respect that we get over there is just by being around.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to gravitate more international and just do the
Of
work
course.
there because we get more response from them. Otherwise,
Right.
we just don't find a pleasure in doing
Yeah.
anything.
Now, if you can just kind of if you could expand on that a little more, I'm just gonna ask you a little more about that because what I find to be incredible, man, is given that we as we started coming up, it was a while ago. It was the beginning of being able to be booked from a video that you put online. But one of the most thrilling parts about it was that I got to see the homies that we're coming up
Yeah.
with, like, yo, I'm going to Poland. Oh, that's crazy. I'm going to Australia. I'm going to China.
Yeah.
I'm like off of a YouTube video. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's this whole other platform and landscape that we just at least I mean I didn't really see coming the way that it was happening. So in that regard, it's awesome. So can you talk about the first time that you went overseas to teach and what you came back with from that trip?
Oh man. Okay.
And if you don't remember the
I
first time,
do.
if you can kind of vaguely remember
I
the
do.
first couple of
It
times, like
was Taiwan.
Taiwan.
Taiwan was brought out there. I think it was through connections with KJ,
Hmm.
and it was just family there. I've never was. It was okay. What I came back with was perspective,
Okay.
and what I tell folks is that we grow up with our families. We're in our home.
All right.
Then we're allowed to go out around the block.
Right.
Then we're allowed to go out in the city.
Right.
And then we go to another state.
Hmm.
And then you go overseas. It's like my perspective kept expanding.
Right.
And
Right.
you're in the air and you're looking down at all these little ants.
Right. Right.
And just start realizing how little things
Right.
are and what the importance of things are. And I think
Hmm.
it's just connection and the not just the respect, but the way they respect people there and
Hmm.
humanity versus not that the U.S. is doing something wrong, is that we're just stuck in a routine, that hamster wheel.
Right. Right.
We just get lost in routine, and with them it was just different. It was just more about the passion and anything. Even if I did a little pinky move, they go nuts.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
not that. It's just
Yeah.
unknown to them because that's how we think, and
Mm-hmm.
what's little to us is huge to them, and what's huge, the
Yeah,
other way around,
of
vice
course,
versa.
absolutely.
So there was just an exchange
Mm-hmm.
and exchange of culture and personalities, and what I came back with was that I wanted more of that. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I got pulled into this by accident, like a lot of us, through YouTube and the video.
Right,
Like I said, we travel and all that,
right.
and it didn't happen. I didn't actually respect or notice what it was I was doing and affecting people, and them affecting me until like the last 5 years.
Really?
Because again, we get stuck in
Right,
routine,
right.
we
Okay, okay.
stability,
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
gotta stay consistent and all that. And then the less that I started detaching from this, the more I was able to accept how happy I really was
Right,
doing
right.
this.
Now, did you? Now, I also want to talk about more of your overseas experiences, just in not just in teaching, but also in battles, by way of participating in the battles, and then later on being able to actually judge battles, right? Because here's the truth of the matter, folks, is that the respect overseas is not easily given. It's not easily given at all. Actually, it's only earned, and especially. I think especially overseas for folks from the states, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we do have something to prove on that floor over there. So can you talk about what that process was for a little bit? You know, your first time going over and being seen as a cat from the states that is trying to battle, and then it slowly progressing into acceptance, and then acceptance of being a judge, which is to me one of the highest titles, I think.
Okay. From my experience, it wasn't that bad because I believe due to internet and videos, I did incorporate a lot of freestyle
Right.
dance into my choreography or the mentality of it. So going to certain events, they would recognize, but
Right.
not give again full credit because I'm not consistent in that world
Right.
of
Right.
battling going against heads.
Right.
So I would get the respect of, they knew who I was. Oh, I love your choreography. I feel like it's freestyle and all this, like, and that.
Right.
Um, until I put myself into a jam.
Right.
And then, of course, mentality and faces change. Like,
Absolutely.
oh, this LA dude. Okay, we're not from LA, but
Right.
anyone
Right.
who comes out of, working from LA is LA all of a sudden, is battling. And again, I didn't have that mentality of regardless of what they're gonna do or say, I'm just gonna put myself out there. And
Right.
again, even though if I didn't beginning didn't win or even get past
Hmm.
preliminaries, there was a respect because I was still hitting the cipher in circles, or
Right. 100%.
they saw another side of me
Right.
that was a part of their world,
Hmm.
and I ended up again making lots of friends from that, and it just kind of domino affected to other
Hmm.
things, and that's always been my passion because that was my original background. So I started using the funds I would get from
Hmm.
choreography and workshops to
Hmm.
start funding my trips to go to these battles for my own personal sake
Right.
and
Right.
learning. And it's a party mentality and feeling. It's just the environment. You have to put yourself in an environment if you really want to break through and learn.
Hmm.
If you want to learn from YouTube, it's cool, but it's best to just get into the class, or
100%.
take the risk and sacrifice to put yourself in an environment to see how you really are within your
Hmm.
community.
Hmm.
And that's what I kept to doing. Once Europe was done, I'm like, yo, Asia's killing, so I gotta go to Asia, kind of thing.
Ah, okay.
And
Uh-huh.
now Brazil and Russia, and just
Right.
every time I'm at an event somewhere for myself for classes, I'm always looking out for what else is there and how I can get there, connect, and it's
Right.
just that's my fun right there.
That's awesome. And then, so what other business opportunities have your overseas travels brought you?
Again, it's just connection and communication, and just being real with yourself
Hmm.
reflects that, and people see you as real, and it just draws good business. And then you create things,
Hmm.
and fortunately with me, I've always had a hand on in the commercial side, whatever that is, industry
Hmm.
and underground, where started tying the shoelaces together.
Absolutely.
People start connecting and
Hmm.
becoming that middleman for things, and that's how it started to become not really managing, but just I never thought of taking this as a business or taking percentage of stuff. It was just connecting
Of
people,
course.
and yo, you want Tony's art? Bam, take him.
Right.
Like
Right.
you
Yeah.
guys should
Yeah.
have him. He has so much to give. Or Brian. Like it goes on because these are peers,
Right.
and these people want them and can learn much from them, so they can take it within their own community and countries and develop themselves and
Of
create their own
course.
hip hop or
Of
whatnot.
course.
And I saw the enjoyment of this, and that kind of pushed me more as helping organizations or camps,
Right.
build and just get on a level where everyone's getting something from it, whether if it's monetary or just just being there in the environment. As long as somebody pulls something from something, something's happening that's really, really good.
Absolutely, love that. And then what's great about that too is that through all of the travels and all of the hoopla that you have going on, whether it be classes and battle or or either one, you still kind of had that mentality of how can I also continue to put people on? Like I'm not like you're not just there as an individual and just kind of be like, all right, I'm gonna be out. It you seem to be the person that wants to leave their mark by making sure that the community takes something from you that they can continue to establish upon themselves. If that
Yeah,
makes
to the
if that
point where
makes
they
sense.
don't need me anymore,
Exactly.
which is it
Right.
backfires at times because then when I need to do a video just because I want to, all my friends are gone because they're all working. So I'm like, damn, I gotta get folks from classes to get down and have fun, and then again that throws them into the fire, and that might spark another inventor of
Right.
something. So I
That's so
find
dope.
ways to stay happy.
That's dope. Then now let's jump into this. Okay, so videos. What I like about your videos, Lando, and listen for those that are on this right now, if you don't know about Lando right now, Lando Wilkins, go to YouTube, just look up any of his videos right now. What I love about Lando's videos is a lot of them. If you were in the right place at the right time and you happen to know the choreography, that anybody could jump into your video. I've seen a video of Lando just waltzing out of an LAPD station like, on the beach. Like he just walked out the front door of an LAPD station and then and met two people and started dancing down the beach. And I'm like, that only has to come about by by you walking by and being like, oh, that'll be
Yeah,
tight. Grab this and let's film this. Is that is
yeah,
that usually how your videos come about, or is it,
yeah.
kind of take us through that process of video creation?
Video creation for me, I base it off of a flow, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I don't go into the whole one take thing, but I'll choreograph in a sense, set things where there's a place for everything, and it's like it's a
Mm-hmm.
clock. There's always gears moving around. There's a lot of chaos, but there's also a flow to it.
Right.
And for some reason, I just have that natural knack that goes back to like me being young. I've always had this natural talent of just figuring the
Right.
Rubik's cube. Like
Right.
I don't know,
Right.
and it's just I have that eye and ear for musicality where it just happens naturally, and I don't try to figure out why I'm like this. I just build
You
on
just kind
top of
of
that and
yeah.
create. And there's just a place, I find the weaknesses and strengths in people where I know they can be utilized in certain parts of the video and add strength to it visually and just like that. Not giving the expectation of what's gonna happen and just have
Mm-hmm.
those reveals. That's thing about camera flow that I learned from other things outside of dance
Mm-hmm.
that helps my creativity where it's kind of based on the whole story of it without having an actual story happening.
Right, right. Now, did your experiences on a show like ABDC did that did that help contribute to that vision as you were experiencing ABDC with Most Wanted Crew um, in real time? Were you on the side of like I'm really loving what's going on right now, or were you more on the fact of uh, honestly without trying to sound too harsh is that it's a heavy over commercialization
Mm.
of our movement and culture. And I am all listen. I'm also guilty of the same. Like you know what
We
I
all
mean.
are.
We all are. Listen, But so yeah, walk me through that in real time. And me personally, I've always been interested in that, just because I have known you for so long, and I know your views. I know your views on the culture and how important dance is. So being on a show that is on a national network, this is for the people at home. Sometimes you don't always get to dance to the songs that you want to,
Mhm.
and even if you get the songs that you want, sometimes you don't get to do the choreography that you want to do because it may not be dynamic and appealing enough to jump out and grab people from a camera. Right? I'm sorry, from the camera, the people at home that might not know all of the intricacies, nuances, and backstory that you have for
Mhm.
dance. So sorry, after that long tangent, please kind of walk me through real time what your experience was on ABDC.
Okay. Good and bad. Like, of course, there's always we know both sides. We know the industry side and fact of just being real to us.
Right.
But there's nothing that we got from the show, I believe, and it became more apparent being on the show that we added to it,
Right.
or we brought back a missing element.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they knew that, and that's the whole purpose of the connection of why Most Wanted was developed as
Mm-hmm.
a crew,
Mm-hmm.
to be put on this show. Not unfortunately, fortunately, we weren't hassled at all on choreography because the way I broke up stuff down with June, again, clockwork. Everyone had their strengths and
Right.
whatever. We built upon that, and that just
Right.
took on episode to episode. And with the creativity with these chefs, there was no issue. Everyone bit their lip on things and just worked together because we had minimal time. Turns out we'd be done 2 days before we even had to do tech rehearsal.
Right. Right.
We got all this free time just to joke around and be friends. So
Right,
it was
right.
really fun on the show because we didn't have much stress other than the routine of waking up early and doing all this stuff, being on your own, not on your own time. And on the show, performance wise, we knew stage work. We knew we had people who crafted stuff.
Right.
We pulled from our repertoire. Like we had stuff we've done before we didn't have to think too much about because
Right.
it's already in us. And it made our experience that much easier on the show until to the end, till we got eliminated. But even so, all the good and bad things, you can just sit back and be like, I knew it, I knew it.
Right.
Like
Right. Right.
we knew what we was getting into, but at the same time, we knew what we wanted to pull from that as well. So there was an exchange.
And with that, what would be some of the best things that came from the first of all putting the group together, the group doing very well on the show. What were some of the best things that came from that?
I think it was just, of course, the relationships that we built,
Mm.
and it was not within the group. There was little cliques too,
Right.
based on character and age
Right.
range and whatnot.
Right.
That all takes effect.
All right.
And just being around each other, we pulled from each other as well. Like I wasn't very big on wordplay and stuff, but having Ian and Brian around
Right,
and June, how they
right.
intertwined that, I pulled from that. They didn't use their legwork or their space so much, and being
Right.
around me, Bam, and whatnot, we just kind of developed, and that
Absolutely.
you see the transformation now in them is that from that experience we went up 5 levels,
Of course, absolutely.
5, 7
And
levels.
also, real quick, just for the people listening / watching, the Most Wanted crew is is like, it's like Most Wanted crew is like the Justice League or like or I would even say like the Avengers. These were individual artists that were paired together. So it was literally like a super crew for real, like a hand picked super crew, which to me gave you levels and levels and levels above everybody else because we had
didn't
like
expect
we
it
had
either.
we had top creators in their field all together. It kind of wasn't fair, you know what I mean? So real quick, can you just give us the rundown of Most Wanted crew, all of the members that were on ABDC?
Yes. Well, of course, we had the youngest at the time was Ian Eastwood, which was
Yeah.
a pleasure to have him as well added that he
Mhm.
wanted to do it.
All right.
And then we had Brian Puspos, and again, them two were close at the time and developed their craft within that. And they also
Right.
had June. June was
Right.
another factor, Kamado.
Absolutely.
And then aside from that, on the box side, there was JP Goldstein,
Right.
myself,
Right.
and Bam Martin.
All right.
And then also because of the connection with Chill Factor, you had Bam and Ricky Martin.
Right. Ricky
So,
Cole. Ricky
yeah,
Cole.
Ricky
Yeah.
Cole.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
sorry, Ricky Martin.
Ricky Martin. Yeah. Ricky Martin actually
thinking
took
Bam.
took a break from Menudos and
Bam Martin and Ricky Cole. My bad. That would have been good to use on them. Because they're them two together when we're like going out, they change. It's so funny. But
That's funny. Yeah, that was so literally, y'all. It was
And then we had one more.
super crew.
we had John Ha from
John High.
the
Yes.
GRV, and Bam was also Bam was everywhere. He's
Yeah, he was. Bam Martin.
multitasking.
And y'all, like, listen, if you're feeling froggy and you're feeling like using YouTube as an incredible tool, YouTube, any of those individual names that he just said right now, if you don't, and if you know a lot of the ones that he said, if there was one that he said that you didn't know, YouTube that name right now. And the special thing about that is that that person, no matter who you YouTube, had a standalone situation on their own anyway, which was I thought was incredible, and also incredible that all egos got laid down at least I mean, listen, I wasn't on the inside, but it seemed like at least to get you guys that far because you guys didn't need each other when it came down to it.
Nah, it just fortunately happened that way.
Now, how did
Either
that
we
happen?
were
Who put it together?
um from my understanding, Myron was developing something for World of Dance.
Okay.
They wanted to create a touring product for
Okay.
them, and he's very close with June as well. And I
Hmm.
believe they started handpicking friends and people that would be a strength to this project.
Hmm.
And then ABDC came after that, and it was like, why not try this out, develop the name, and push it further? That could also go back and strengthen World of Dance at the
Right.
time.
Right.
And that was the whole purpose of why I'm pretty sure the Most Wanted was created.
Right. Right. And you guys you still do performances here and
Yeah,
there,
we
right?
were all
Here
brought
and
out
there.
to Mexico recently, and I'm not sure. The thing is that we don't have a manager, so who knows how many gigs we missed out via email and messaging. But
Yeah.
when it comes to us getting together, it's usually like yes, as long as everything's in order.
Hmm.
But again, everyone's different now. Two of them have kids and
Right.
businesses,
Right.
and
Of course.
everyone's changing trades now. One's a
Right.
singer, director. I'm doing the whole toy design thing.
Right.
So because of this, everyone's going to other passions now. But when we can get back together, sure, why
Right.
not?
Which leads us to a beautiful segue into transitions. Transitions, transitions, transitions. Now, we've gotten, I think, a nice view, a nice scope of Lando coming through a journey of dance. But where are you now? You have now toured the world. You have taught the world. You've battled, right? You've judged battles. You've come back. You've done television shows. Uh, what are you doing now? That same mind that loves to figure stuff out. What's keeping that mind occupied right now creatively?
Creatively, I'm just focused more on behind the scenes. Like I'm still doing the work for artists, as far as
Mm-hmm.
like music videos, storyboarding,
Mm-hmm.
directing. That's I'll never get rid of that. I'm noticing in myself that I'm doing less physically,
Mm-hmm.
more because it's my choice. I don't feel that this is going to be a thing that's going to be long for me,
Right.
longevity as far as me doing this routine. Because again, nephews and nieces are getting older and
Right. Right.
developing family. We're men now. It's different than how we
Absolutely.
were boys then,
Yes. Yes.
1 year ago. And just again, I'm my mindset's more on creativity. So that's why I started developing. I mean, I had like a terrible accident a few years ago that caused me to get into another trade. And at the time, again, growing up in school, I was also into sculpting and airbrushing, painting, and
Mm-hmm.
all that.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, because of the funds I accumulated from travel, I was able to fund a new craft for myself and develop a whole nother name from that in that world and the whole vinyl collectible
Very
toy world
cool.
that started booming again in the past 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So my focus has been on that lately, and it took off and it's taken my time, which is cool because I can sit down, paint, catch up on Netflix shows,
Right. Right.
talk to people
Right.
again, be at
Yeah.
home, sleep in my own bed, eat various cereals. Like
Right. Right.
we don't get that when you travel too much and just focus on health and just living and see what the next steps are. But at times, of course, I will go back into dance when I want to. If I
Of
want to do a
course.
video, hit up the homies real quick and knock it out just for my sake,
Absolutely.
or go to battles for my sake, or if I want to go teach just to influence, spread the message, I'll do it. But it's in the end, it's all for my sake. They just
Mm-hmm.
so happen to be there and be supportive of it.
Right. So would you say that your relationship with the dance now is more on the side of sharing just to pass on and not necessarily to be put on anymore, or is it a relationship of I'm now going to take all of the knowledge that I have and pass it on and pass it on and pass it on, or are you wanting to spend the next couple of years, maybe wanting to choreograph for an artist, or like, is there still an ultimate dance dream, or has that kind of shifted altogether?
The dream would be more connectivity. And now that we see more cultures and countries connecting more, is to now get everyone on a certain mental level. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where the whole education thing like
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
is happening more and more often now with our peers that are doing it, which is good.
Right.
We're taking the responsibility, noticing that we do have a strong voice, that we can do something about it,
Right.
and that's happening more and more. And I'm still the same from then till now. It's just that I I look for the reasons to be creative, and
Mm-hmm.
if I have that, then I don't get bored. If I am, then I'm bored and I find another thing. And just
Right, right,
I'm really, really hard to be impressed with stuff. That's why I
right,
can't or don't want to judge competitions because they're stuck in a format and it just gets repetitive.
right,
And if it's a new song or new music or new movement, it's just the same and I don't want to see it. I'm not
right,
impressed. Even
right,
though they're doing cool stuff, but
right,
I'm looking towards harshly saying I'm forgetting about the generations before and looking to see what's next for the new generation.
right,
So we can't go backwards and focus so much on trying to reteach these people that they missed out
right.
because it's going to take a while to
Of
catch
course.
up. It's just mine right now. We should focus on the new generation
Mm-hmm.
and those who still have interests that want to pursue and get things right. They can follow along and
Mm-hmm.
develop themselves
Mm-hmm.
at a later age, or it doesn't matter. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, it's the new generation we need to help out because our generation didn't get help. I mean,
Right.
I wish I can go into that. And, the first generation didn't get help because they were the originators of it.
Exactly. Of course. Of
So
course.
it's,
So then how? So then how? And this question is just. I mean, you already started to kind of allude to this, but how important is it for the older generations to pass on as much information as possible to the newer generations?
it's important, and it's gonna sound morbid, but they're gonna die.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, it comes to the point where in your name and everything that you've done, we're to a point for selfish reasons, which is okay.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's all about legacy and how you want to leave it for the next generation to pursue and create for themselves without, being so restricting on, hey, that's not the way to do it.
Right.
We all come from different times and eras, and at that era and time, that was the way to do it. Now we're in a totally different era and time, and I respect those originators that adapt to our times yet still be them at the same time. That, hey, this is the history, but you know what? The world's still turning.
Mm-hmm.
And those who voice, like, give them credit. I try to push those as much as possible and speak on it. But those who don't speak on it and want to be stuck in a certain time,
Right.
the world revolves. Like, we're gonna forget about you. So if you don't want to be forgotten, you gotta speak up or say something if you can.
Right.
Even if it's an Instagram post and you only get 2 views, that's two more people that
Right. That
heard
didn't know before.
something.
Right. Right.
It's not about. It shouldn't be about the number game. Numbers
Mm-hmm.
for business is good, but to reach out for folks and spread message, don't worry about the numbers. Just do what you feel that you want to do and just say something.
Right. So is it possible? Is it possible for the OGs to establish a point of importance, and mean, and listen, don't anybody take this wrong, I'm saying importance as far as like the new generation goes, because this is why I asked this, is because it can go either way, right? You have your OGs that are like years and years and years and years of work provided us the foundation that's going on, whereas like a lot of the new booties that have just come out right now, they're like, yo, that's so old that like I don't even know why that's important to me right now. Do you know? And I'm saying and I'm saying
Yeah,
it
I know.
seriously, right? This is like, what the mindset could possibly be. Well, why do I have to know what a dime stop is if the choreography just tells me to stop on 3 right there? Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that I'm supposed to stop on 3. Is it possible for the OGs to have a platform here in the States, um, of the importance that we're looking at it from? Is it possible for them to have that platform? And if so, what's going to start that?
Man, okay. Nothing's impossible. Of course, we know
Right,
that.
right.
But for the OGs, I think it depends on their focus, what it is they're trying to do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I can go. I'm trying to narrow down what it is I want to
No,
talk
you're
about.
fine. Yeah.
But oh man, it's just with them. It's just again being more of a voice and trying to teach the teachers right now. Because those who are developing is going to take time, but those of us who've already put time into our craft,
Mm-hmm.
who don't know that history, should be also the focus too, because they're the ones who have stronger names right now
Right.
that are teaching these next generation. They're going to look up to people they can relate to because they're at a younger age versus someone who's old.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they call
Yeah.
us OGs, and I'm like, bro, I'm only 34. What you talking about? But when I was a little shit, I was calling these people OGs
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
understand how they
Yeah.
feel now. tables
Yeah,
turn, but no, it's not. It's consistent. Like you see a lot of OGs that are still consistent and doing their life and pushing through, and
100%.
they're not caring about what the media world is gonna do because they're doing them.
Of course.
And that's that whole carefree mentality, and it works for some of them. Some of them it doesn't work because they're either coming back too late,
Mm-hmm.
or they want to start something at a time where it's kind of past their time.
Mm-hmm.
But to find that niche or demographic that they can add to versus trying to do everything all at once.
Right,
So,
right,
of course, just to make it simple, if you are a popper, focus on the demographic of
right,
popping,
right,
and find a trade that, that you want to develop. If it's the wave you want to focus on this.
right,
But we don't get a lot of that from them too much because they weren't developed in the platform that we're developed in now, as
right.
far as how to teach on counts.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of simple
Mm-hmm.
things like this, which sounds simple to us because again
Because we
we're
came up in
developed in
that.
it,
Right, right,
but it's not for them because who cares? You just move and you copy kind
right,
of thing, and
right.
it's a plus or minus. Like we get from that of being able to create and have freedom from it because we see how they are in character.
Mm-hmm.
Yet it's kind of hard for them because they're developed in our platform now, where if it's not in order, they can't learn, which
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
is something that they have to learn
Mm-hmm.
and something they have to learn how to break also.
Right. Now I'm gonna revert. I'm gonna kind of flip that on you and say, now what about the newer generation? What about what is it from your perspective? And I also don't want to. I don't also don't want to approach this question saying that like, oh, the new generation is like, no, the new generation is dope. Like, and they I mean, what's already built, what's already kind of in their infrastructure. They kind of came into the world with the ear for like all those little sounds and music
So genetics
that
passed
used to
on.
blow our minds. Right
Yeah.
now that it is just the norm for them. But with all of that, I think there's then a shortage of like we kind of said earlier, is your own personality, individualism,
Hmm.
and not being afraid to be the one that might not get as many views right at first, but you're taking a crack at shaping the culture. So, what are the words from Lando, from all of your experiences, to pass on to the new school, um, to make sure that they're exercising their muscle of creativity and originality?
Okay.
So they're not clones, basically. I
Figure out
mean,
my
put
analogy now.
bluntly, you know,
Yeah.
put bluntly.
An analogy to use is to learn how to cook your favorite dish.
Mm,
Um, for example, and I've said this before. I can use this one. Lasagna. Everyone, you can. I call this the generation before is like the microwave generation. You can put it in for a minute, ding, it's done. They can do it quick,
mm-hmm,
but they don't know how to make it from scratch.
mm,
If you ask them, what flavor is this, they don't know the secret sauce
mm-hmm,
kind of
mm-hmm.
thing. And that's what's happening now with those who are realizing this, that they got to go back and learn how to build themselves from scratch again to know
Mm-hmm.
that everything that they've been putting down about the old generation is still current.
Right,
Like you're doing this dime stop,
right,
even though it's not called that now, it's still from something. And
right.
the more you acknowledge what it is and what it really came from, the more you're able to subconsciously do it. We
Mm-hmm,
ain't got to put so much thought into it that we
mm-hmm.
can put thought into other things. And I don't know, they just, as far as like you said, mentioned earlier about the creativity of it, is that just to look up. Everyone's so focused on technology, and we are victims of it as well, that we forget to look up and see the world. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so much more in your peripherals than you are looking at a screen in the
100%.
sense of finding themselves. Is that to detach at a time, to find yourself, make mistakes, ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like more people more open to sharing their thoughts now because everybody wants to have a voice. But
Right.
you can gain from that also. And just the new generation needs to just look up and
Look up.
blink every
Mm-hmm.
now and then, because the more you look down at that screen, you're comparing and just trying to copy to get to the
Right.
next stage. And then you start relying on consistency by being redundant because you feel that you need to be consistent to keep your status quo and whatnot like
Yes.
that. But turn
Yes.
it off every now and then. Look
Right.
up, listen to music that you're not comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll try to throw an opera every now and then just to break my mind and
Right.
then
Right.
just then come back to it if you feel you ever get what we call choreographers or dancers block,
Right.
which I
Okay.
don't because I don't give a damn. Like,
Right.
I just
And
I
is
look up.
is that the way? And I guess that's the question. Is that the weapon for you against when when you find your
Everything.
creativity stagnant? It's just like, why do I? Is it the mindset of why do I care so much? Like, I'm gonna create what I'm gonna
Yeah,
create, and it's gonna
fortunately,
be it.
I don't get stuck. Maybe I have and
That's
I haven't
awesome.
realized it,
Right.
but because that I have this character mentality of I don't care what you think attitude,
Right.
it allows me to be more free. I don't have that roadblock, and
Mm-hmm.
because I don't care that I want to be a skater, I'll go be a skater and pull
Right.
from that, and then focus on my glides from skating. Like I
Right.
don't know, you
Right.
can pull
Yeah.
from anything in life that's not just focused on dance.
I see.
And I came up with martial arts and basketball
Mm-hmm.
and just how I react on my feet and light on my feet came from those arts. Like
Right.
it just came from many things that I pulled from. And as far as character and originality, I just look up and just relate to different people
Mm-hmm.
and see how their upbringings were and ask questions
Mm-hmm.
because my curse is that I want to learn. I'm always learning, so it's a good curse.
Always absolutely, always
Yeah.
a student. Now with that, what's and this is something that I think I'm gonna keep. I think I'm gonna keep this question around because it gets interesting. What is something that no longer defines you? And I know I'm gonna give you a second on that because it's like I don't expect you to have, but like for instance, and you know this too. Something that no longer defines me is being the different one, right? Like the one like I'm 6 feet tall. I'm built like a linebacker. There's no reason I should have dyed my hair blonde. There's no reason, right? Like when it comes down to it, other than just like straight self expression. But under that though, just my upbringing, like being from Alabama, is just I wanted to be different and be like, yo, nah, like I'm expressing myself. Like this is how I like to dress. Like this is like my hair is different. Like that, and that used to define me in a way. It was like, outrageous clothing, crazy hair, piercings on the face. But then I've come to a place where I'm able to strip all that away, and that no longer defines me. So that's what I mean by, if there was anything back in the day, that you felt might have either been a chip on your shoulder, something that was a trigger for you to feel like you had to overly prove yourself or whatever. What's something, and maybe honestly, it don't even have to be that deep. It could be something funny too. I
It's
was about to
not,
say
bro.
it doesn't have to be
It's
that deep
not.
either. Like it could
It's
be
not.
some, it's whatever. But what no longer defines you?
I'm the worst person to ask that question to. And I mentioned before it's because I don't give a damn what people think. And I think that's some people, those who know me and even till now notice why I'm still appealing is that I haven't changed since day one in that
Right.
mentality.
I agree. Yeah.
And I really can't answer that because I don't give a damn. It's just I'm not restricted by other people's ideas or morals, or even if I'm doing something wrong, I'm not restricted by wanting to do something right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not for me. It's trial and error, and I've always been adaptive and open to that where I gain something from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I can't really pinpoint something as notable as what you went through versus where I am from now. It's just that I've always been congenial
Right.
of change, and that's something I like to stick by without effort. It's just, I guess that'd be my answer, bro.
Listen, I love how the message of working on yourself as a craft was the starting point, right? Rather than working on the styles, because that's also where I actually find myself personally right now, is backtracking and working a lot on myself, because I spend a lot of time working on the style and a lot of time working on the image, right? A lot of time working on the image and the way that we're presenting ourselves as brands, right? Like,
Okay.
I think that's
So I
kind of
use
where
this
we're at.
analogy as well, where we don't have that issue of having to develop ourselves as a personality because we are our own brand.
Right.
We came from something. You can see if someone did a certain movement or a certain routine, you know that it was them. That was
Right.
branded as them. With the generation currently, though, is that they don't have that. They're just mimics or generic versions of it sounds harsh to say generic, but
But it's the truth. But
yeah,
it's
it's
blunt though. It
generic
is.
versions of those specific brands where like, why should I buy these cheese chips versus Doritos? Like I know what Doritos are,
Right.
why
Right.
should I buy, Dove soap? I know what it does for my body versus this new generic soap that could be even better. It just doesn't know how to brand itself.
Absolutely.
And it comes to that point where you should focus on what it is that you're trying to sell in a sense to the
Right.
public versus trying to stay consistent on the generic end.
Mm-hmm.
So sell sounds bad. Sell yourself
Well, in a sense,
in the
but
sense
yeah.
of creating yourself as a brand, like what it is that you can offer. If you want to get to all these events or you want to become this teacher, know how to brand yourself to them for them
Mm-hmm.
to purchase in a sense, and why this your brand is better than this other brand. It does become a race to an extent, but it's also survivability. It's not like we're gonna lose opportunities. The more that these events are happening, we have more opportunities to do this. It's just again narrow down and focus on what it is that you are that you can offer.
Right. Right. But let me ask you this though. Let me just come at it from a devil's advocate standpoint. Okay. We are living in a society right now where you can have in real time what your audience is reacting to. We're living in a society where the Cash Me Outside girl just got a multi-million-dollar record deal with Atlantic Records. Okay? Multi-million dollars. She's 14 and got on by basically telling her parents to go F themselves, right?
Yeah.
So, with that being said, how how what do you say to students, to people that look up to you, the people that are looking to get started while using the platforms that can help them, get an incredible start, but also remain authentic to themselves and not falling into the trap, into the like trap, if I can just kind of create that term for a second, just falling into the like trap, because I know that if I have a song that everybody likes and I have a group that is executing something extremely clean, extremely fast, and exciting, I'm probably going to be put on somehow.
Okay, I got one.
Even if I don't like what I'm doing, I'm going to be put on somehow.
It comes to the point of longevity.
Okay.
Do you want to be a one-hitter quitter? Or do you want your career, if this is going to be a career, how long you want it to last? And a lot of people came in fault for that. They do something really cool and they get thrown into this world that they're not prepared for, and they rise and they either continue to rise
Mm-hmm.
or they just drop and they
Right.
get 5 jobs at Starbucks, live back at home. Like it's the reality of it.
Right,
You
right,
guys quit
right.
school and don't have a backup plan, but have a backup plan to your plan A. If it's dance, you have dance and fashion, dance and entertainment, dance and music,
Mm-hmm.
something that can also support your plan A, which is your main craft.
Mm-hmm.
But man, again, like you mentioned about the Cash Me Outside, like it's a trend, and trends also die. So you gotta look at yourself as: are you trendy, or are you gonna be the music?
Right.
The trendy song, or are you gonna be the music? The
Right.
music is gonna be forever in an instance, or are you
Okay.
just gonna be a trend in that pinpoint of time and be forgotten because again they're gonna look for the next best thing.
That's dope. Work on yourself as a craft, people. Work on yourself as a craft.
Take the
Right.
time.
Absolutely. I think that, but I mean, I think that's awesome and an incredible gift of a mindset, especially to have right now when we have so much to look down and compare to, right? And I'd imagine, you have definitely had some wildly successful videos. So the fact that you were still able to keep your willpower about you and not feel that you had to try to recreate what gave you the milli hitter in the YouTube videos, the fact that you felt like you didn't have to recreate step by step, but only recreate the feeling in which you had while you were creating it. That is incredibly important, and I hope that the people watching, listening, I hope that that's something that you take away with you today, because like he said before, since day one he hasn't changed, and I can attest to that. This is the same guy that I met. I think it was that one was cracking beats 2005 maybe. This is the same guy every time that I see him, and that is incredibly important, especially now. So, hey, if you, I'm say it again, if you don't know about Lando, It's about time that you know. And get out to his class. And also real quick, go ahead and let people know where they can find you, and also and where they can find your toys too. Because you
Oh,
you spoke
snap.
you spoke about it, but you didn't like say
Yeah.
where they can find them.
All right. Well, I mean, again, I'm taking the responsibility to share education and teach more, so I'm consistent at Movement Lifestyle
All right,
on
there we go.
Thursdays.
Boom.
Um, what else? I'm also, again, like the platform you're developing, I'm developing another platform called Uno, which is unlike no other, and it focuses on many topics
Nice.
of finding out or reintroducing who you are to you in a sense. And that'll be on you can find information on my Instagram at Lando Wilkins.
Nice.
And for the toy stuff, if you're into that fun world, it's under Uncle Scro.
I'm sorry.
Uncle,
Under what?
Uncle, and then Scro is Skro. And the whole story behind that is my brother had like a speech issue growing up, and he couldn't say my first name, so he always made up these random dumb names. And eventually, Scro stuck when I got older, and then of course he had kids, so I became Uncle Scro. And then I started telling folks like, "Yo, do you like this name or this?" And like, "Yo, Uncle Scro is the one." I'm like, "All right, that's the one," and it sticks. Again, Uncle Scro is just an idea. It's not really who I am, but Uncle Skro. You can check that out.
You heard it here first.
YouTube, Lando, it's the same stuff, but
That's amazing.
I keep
That's
it
dope.
simple.
My man Lando, thank you so much for coming by the lab today, man. And also, listen, before we close this thing out, is there anything else that you wanted to get off your chest? Anything you want to pass on? Because listen, told you before, the reason we're doing this is in the age of information, we're trying to provide something like a substantial meal rather than just a little snack, right? So this is something that hopefully 5 to 10 years now we'll still be able to look back on and pick up little gems from this conversation. I think you've dropped a lot, but I'm just making sure that with this time that we actually are spending to be heard, to make sure that there's any message that you want to leave behind, anything.
Oh man, of course. Let me pick one. I guess I'll speak to again the new generation is. I always tell people to start. This is your time to start. Like we've all kind of been lost for a second, and we're going back to ground zero again. So it's time to start over. And we're all trying to do too much. You're spreading yourself thin. Your arms are wide open. You have no strength. But we need to step back and narrow your focus. And when you do that, you strengthen one craft. Like focus on a craft first, which should be you, not the styles. Focus on yourself as a craft, and then you start realizing how that starts spreading out, like a nervous system. It just reaches out to other things, and there's connections in everything. And you start seeing those connections in dance styles too, from like house can lead into Latin styles, or, technical stuff can go into popping in a sense. Like everything has a connection. It's just the mentality you got to focus on. The more you can break out into your mentality and step back to slow down, you'll end up moving faster than you thought in redeveloping yourself.
Word up. And any shout outs to any mentors you want to shout out?
Oh yeah, my mama. I want to shout out to my mama.
Let's go.
Mother mama. I just want to shout out to all the teachers that are doing something right now. I'm happy that our gen and more are taking the initiative to share their histories and stuff and their knowledge with people, and that it's showing a slow effect, but there's been some change that's been noticeable. So I want to shout out to everyone who's giving back from what they gained.
Word up, word up. Well, we want to thank Lando Wilkins for coming through to the lab. Catch this guy. Trust me, it's never going to be a shortage of creativity, originality, and step your game up, because he also has the skill to hand your ass to you too. So
yeah, there's a lot of catching up for y'all. With all of us, like we're stable in what we do. We're strong. So there's a lot of new talent and new strengths coming out. There's still some catching up to do. We're still relevant.
Absolutely, yeah. Don't it's a couple more years left, you guys. All right, my man. Thank you so much.
For sure, bro.
I appreciate you, man. Wow. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.
Everything has a connection. It's just the mentality you gotta focus on. The more you can break out into your mentality and step back to slow down, you'll end up moving faster than you thought in redeveloping yourself.